Bongity bangity bong bang bong.
After all of the screaming at the TV on Saturday, I was like, we've got to have an emergency pod conference and talk about everything that happened, because I felt like I actually have in the notes here to talk about the atmosphere first. So the gate ended up being the fourth highest ever still, even after McGregor and Chandler backed out, and they gave, I don't know how that works, but they gave a bunch of people money back or something. And the crazy thing is Alex Pereira has been part of two of the top four highest gates ever.
I know. I saw a comment online somewhere today that was like, McGregor, stay away, no need to come back. This man is the face of the UFC now, which, I mean, he kind of is. Like,
I definitely think we've got plenty we can talk about Alex Pereira later in the show, but I think that it's definitely, he doesn't even speak English and he's the face of UFC. The UFC, so
which
I feel
I'm really
like
actually surprised that he hasn't
I know.
slowly. He's only been with us a short time, right? It's crazy how short his MMA career has been. But like, he lives in Danbury, Connecticut with Glover. Like, I bet he speaks English right now. He just doesn't feel comfortable, and that we're gonna start seeing him like slowly but surely a little bit more. At least maybe I'm completely wrong, but
I think you might be wrong, because I feel like he just like
entirely possible.
Does not care. I feel like he just does not care. Yeah, so I thought it was awesome. I did think like the arena was pretty lame until the main event. Lots of empty seats. With all the drama and great stories, it just still had, even the main event at points to me still had like a feeling of disappointment. Like, it almost felt more like a fight night than a pay-per-view fight.
Yeah, the stakes were high and all that, but it did still feel kind of like, I had some people over at the house here watching it, and like, I don't know. I feel like I was distracted and watched less than I would have on like another huge pay-per-view. Like, get up and do whatever in the kitchen and this and that, just because it felt a little lackluster.
Yeah, and I think that that's partly McGregor dropping out. I also think that there were so many. It's not just that. I think there were so many fill-ins, and that it. I don't know. I feel like UFC's in a little bit of a transition period right now. We've got so many more fights happening every year. I think that the sport is just adjusting to the fatigue and the new pace that is being put on things.
The various co-main events each fell apart so many times.
Yeah, plenty of drama there, though. Let's get into the fights. I know you had people over. I had some people over. I was able to watch almost all of the prelims except the first one, which I think was probably the bloodiest prelim. I will say, on the main card, there was an absolute bloodbath. We totally got our certified bloodbath wrong. And we'll get to that. There's just like one of the greatest, one of those all-time cuts. It was reminding me of like Alistair Overeem's lip hanging by a thread and just like having exploded in front of everybody. So, let's kick it off with just one of the most incredible displays of jiu-jitsu my idiot jiu-jitsu brain has ever seen. I was like short-circuiting watching these guys just like it reminded me of in like the Warner Brothers cartoons, the Animaniacs, where they'd like get in a fight and there would just be a bunch of dust and like feet and legs and stuff.
Like a tornado, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the Tasmanian devil was sweeping across the mat.
Honestly, no disrespect to Carlos Hernandez. He did an amazing job defending and not getting finished and stuff like that, but Ray Saruya, holy cow. What it reminded me of is being a white belt and having like a brown belt just breakdancing on top of my body, like, while we're like doing all 360 spins and ending up in all these crazy places. And it's basically breakdancing, but
I
using
like
me instead of like a piece of cardboard on the floor.
I felt like Carlos Hernandez was an incredible jiu-jitsu fighter. I think that his path forward is to go like focus on kickboxing, which is I think a little atypical in the UFC. I think that he's got a bright future ahead of him, because it's like the only person who could have stopped that ability is an extreme high-level jiu-jitsu fighter. And
it was
Racer
amazing that it went to a decision.
I could not believe it went to a decision. We got to see a twister almost 3 or 4 times or more.
I know. I feel like he was so determined to get that twister that if he hadn't like honed in on it so much, he might have finished him with something else.
Yeah, totally. So that would have been the 3rd in the history of the sport, right? 3rd?
I mean, so you got Bryce Mitchell, and then who was the first one?
I think it was Zombie.
A Korean fighter.
I think Zombie
but I don't remember who. Was it?
I think the Korean Zombie did it.
You know better than me.
Yeah, right. I don't know about that. Zombie Twister. Let's see if he did it. Yeah, so Korean Zombie secured the first ever Twister submission. Okay. And then Bryce Mitchell got the second.
And then Bryce Mitchell was the second.
So you can see why, especially if a guy has a strong jiu-jitsu background, he'd want to get the 3rd ever Twister.
Yeah.
You know, super uncommon submission, and you've got a huge stage. That was awesome. Like, keeping the lightning round, although it's definitely not lightning, going, Andrei Arlovski, geesh, absolute legend, but time for him to hang it up.
Yeah, when he was fighting, I looked it up on my phone. I don't know if you've looked. When do you think his first fight in the UFC was?
Well, I don't. So I'm gonna answer this, but I'm gonna answer it. I'm gonna tell you why it's an educated guess, because I saw on Twitter that Andrei Arlovski was the last active fighter that Stipe has fought. Right. So there are no other active fighters that Stipe's fought. So it's got to be, 15 years ago?
Try the year 2000, Tom.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Isn't that unbelievable? Arlovski's first fight in the UFC, which was not his first MMA fight, if I recall correctly, was in the year 2000. And wow. Here he is in 2024.
That's amazing. Yeah, Dana said in the post-fight presser that this was Andrei's last fight. So I think Andre probably told him behind the scenes that he wasn't going to do it anymore, and I feel like everybody knows that it's time. So all around, just terrible fight, really hard to watch. The ref kept getting him out of the clinch and trying to get him to hit each other, and it's just two big boys just did not want to be punching each other. So disappointing.
To be fair, if I wouldn't want to be punched by either of them either, so I would do everything I could to avoid that.
That's fair, yeah. But instead of trying to progress the fight, they just were both content to hug each other really hard, and so that was kind of hard to watch. But what are you gonna do? Okay, 3rd up on the list, Peyton Talbot. Okay, this kid got an incredible knockout. First round, I think. He was.
It was very quick. I regret to inform you that I missed the entire thing.
Yeah,
because I was walking in the door of my house with Domino's Pizza. I went to pick it up in the fight beforehand and timed it so that I would get back right as that fight starts. Yeah. And I missed it by 30 seconds and it was over.
Yeah, because it's so over. Yeah, it was over so quick. So, interestingly enough about this. We talked about this in the pod, the last episode, and we're talking about how I was like, this guy, there was something about the kid. It's like, he kind of looks interesting. I've heard that he is going to be an interesting fighter. Maybe I slacked that too. I don't know if we talked about it in the podcast, but just thought for whatever reason he looked interesting. After the fight was over, wow, this kid definitely looks like somebody to watch. And I started seeing posts on Twitter about him. And the first 2 links that I have here, you don't really need to open. Definitely watch him at some point. He was on Ariel's show. He didn't start doing any kind of fighting sport until he turned 18. He's 25 right now.
Yeah, that is insane.
It's absolutely insane. He's only been doing MMA since he was 18. He didn't even know about it until he saw Conor McGregor highlights. He was he's very athletic. So he played football in high school and was kind of being recruited, but he basically stopped growing, and so needed to pick a different sport, and started doing music. So he's very artsy. I think you can kind of tell by his tattoos. Dog. I don't know if you can see the dog. I think you can tell by his tattoos that he's got that kind of artsy bent to him, and saw highlights of Conor at a sushi restaurant. Thought, I think I'd like to try MMA, and he said that he didn't even really want to do it full time until he won his second fight, and he realized he had a love for it. Another
Pulling up
interesting
some
thing.
of these videos.
Yeah, the second one where he says also super weird. He definitely breaks the mold of a UFC fighter. The one video is him like pole dancing is the only way I can describe it. It's not like, yeah, I mean that's, we'll put the video in here so you can see.
Is that the one that's labeled also super weird?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, he's definitely a unique guy. And then his
He's
Instagram
triangling
has...
the pole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's not like sensual or anything, but he's definitely got some weird interests.
I mean, speak for yourself.
True. Yeah. Fair enough. And he also, like, if you go to his Instagram, he has a super model a bunch of posts where he's kind of like modeling weird clothes and stuff. But my favorite part about this is that he posted a video prior to 303 with explicit instructions on how Gamori could beat him, which I just think is like amazing. It reminds me of, old school stuff where you hear about football teams being so good that the offensive line's telling the defense exactly what player they're about to run and they still can't stop it and stuff. So, I don't know, just something really cool there.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, good stuff. And then the Lord Assassin himself, Jean Silva, bad man, had an amazing knockout. Or no, that went to a decision, I think. Whatever. He seems like a cool guy. He just seems like a cool dude. He was having fun out there. I think that, especially... although, I guess you don't have to learn English. If Pereira's teaching us anything, you really don't have to learn English. You can, he could go out there and be, a really recognizable face in the sport. Just having fun. It just seems like a likable guy.
Yeah, just a fun guy to be around.
Yeah, totally. He laughed, he cried, he was screaming and shouting, so it was good stuff. And then Killer Cub versus Touchy Feely. I feel like I was really excited about this one just because of the nicknames, and it did not live up to the hype I had in my head. It was a fun fight to watch, but just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, there's not much to say about it, right? It was it was just an average fight. There weren't really any standout moments.
No. And then Joe Pyfer is just such a bad man.
Yeah, he's a problem.
Yeah, and clearly didn't just catch one. I mean, he caught one, and then with his, I think it was his right hook, and then really calculated next steps to eventually he just like I don't even know who he fought. I don't even have it up here, but he like grabbed his head and kind of pushed it down into his right again. It was just really neat to see. It was very deliberate, the strikes that ended the fight, and it's easy to say that a guy's good when he kind of catches somebody making a small mistake, but it's really easy to say the guy's good when you see him so calculated and ending a fight completely on his own terms.
Yeah, and so far, like, he's pretty much just steamrolled everyone.
Yeah. He's undefeated?
I'm checking.
Yeah.
But wouldn't surprise me. No, he's lost a few fights, but
13-3. Body bags.
I mean, really the only fight in he lost one on the Contender Series, but really the only fight in the UFC he lost was to Jack Hermanson.
Yeah. So, really good, fun fighter to watch. Seems like a cool guy. Excellent nickname. So we're gonna keep following him. And that was the prelims. Then we went to the main card, and all hell started to break loose with the co-main event. But I guess we should go through the 3 fights that led up to the co-main first.
I'm so disappointed in the Ian Gary MVP fight. And here's the thing. Ian, I wouldn't have a problem with Ian choosing to wrestle.
Right.
He's like a very high-level judo guy. He moved to Brazil to train with some of the best BJJ guys in the world. So, he's got some ground credentials and stuff there. The reason I have a problem with it is because all you hear him talk about always, but also specifically leading up to this fight, is how he's going to show that he's the better striker, but he just only talks about striking. And it was just like he was scared.
Yeah, he seemed scared, and I think that he even admitted it in the post-fight interview with Joe Rogan. He was like, I know that this isn't what people wanted to see, but I knew it was the only way I could beat him. The other thing, to be fair, that you saw with these guys, there's so many cameras in every room now that it's hard to hide this anymore. That, they had all of this trash talk during the lead up, and you kept seeing them in each other's faces, and a couple of face-offs, one, the weigh-in, and the other, the, whatever. And then in the octagon, they were kind of trash talking and stuff too. And then you kept seeing clips of them after these press conferences and stuff were over, and they're just like hanging out, and their kids are playing together and stuff. And Chael would never, like the persona can't die if a camera's in the room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to keep the storyline alive or whatever.
Yeah, Conor would never. I mean, like Ian's hero is Conor McGregor, I guess. He's like talks like Conor McGregor and then turns into, I don't know, Aljamain Sterling. Like wears has a backpack on people.
Yeah, Conor would be like, "Your kid is in me DMs."
Yeah, I feel like we were cheated because Ian just chose to be a wrestling coward, and I think we were cheated because Michael Venom Page clearly has not spent a single second of his life learning any jiu-jitsu. There's stuff that he was not doing that I know to do. That Ian Machado Gary is not a good wrestler.
At the same time, I will throw out there that if you and I were allowed to 2-on-1 grapple MVP, I'm pretty sure he would starch us.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he would hit us though. That's fair. But as soon as Ian started shooting, it seemed like it was over.
Yeah, it was lame.
Brings us to the real certified bloodbath of the fight, which was Buena Silva. Holy freaking crap! That was a wild fight and a wild end to a fight.
I mean, I feel like it's the closest I've ever gotten to seeing a human skull without seeing just the entirety of a human skull.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally agree. Yeah. It was nasty. It was amazing. She was leaking blood all over the place. I just can't imagine that happening to me and thinking that I still wanted to continue to fight, because she was mad. Buena Silva was mad that they called the fight. I did see on Twitter the other day that there was a guy in some of the lower promotions that said that he'd taken a few classes on how to tell whether these cuts are ones to let go or not, and he was saying that it's called like a stretch cut colloquially, and that something about that means that it is very easily widened and opened, and it can lead to like major problems. And I think where it was right over her eye, I think there was a lot of stuff that led to them saying like, "Nah, we're just not gonna."
Just looking at it, it looked like it was like going to be hard to close up because the skin was, the two pieces were far apart from each other.
Yeah. So interested to see that. And by the way, on Friday night in the PFL, there was a very similar, like much bigger cut to a guy. I think he actually won the fight though. So interesting. If we lowered ourselves ever to talk about the PFL, we could potentially bring that.
Hey, I watched some of that card.
Yeah, I'll watch. If there's absolutely nothing else on, I'll watch.
If the PFL would like to sponsor us, we will talk exclusively about the PFL. And next time they come to town, I would love to go.
Yeah, and by lowering myself to talk about the PFL, I mean in through the roof of the PFL arena. I'll lower myself and talk about
like
them.
Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
Dun, 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 dun. Lionheart Dolidze, short notice fight. Anthony looked out of shape, in my opinion. He's never gonna hang it up, but I don't think he's good anymore, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that guillotine from his previous win, I breathed new confidence and life into him, but I don't know. I mean, who are we to say? But it's tough for me to imagine a scenario in which he beats a top guy.
Anthony's problem is he's a good fighter fighting in an era of great fighters. I think that's his biggest problem. Because as much as I like Anthony, I think he's an awesome guy. I think he was kind of shafted a couple years ago when he had the chance to fight for the belt, but was it Hill replaced him? Hill got the fight instead. Do you remember that? Anthony was learning about it. He was like, I'll have to send you the video. Anthony learned about that bout on live TV, and they're telling him, hey, just so you know, John Mahal Hill got the fight, and Anthony's like, well, that's not awesome for me, but I feel like he's kind of gotten, I don't know, I feel like he's kind of gotten the short end of the stick a few times, but here's my thinking. Anthony wants to fight for championships, and he is not able to fight for championships
that's the thing. Yeah,
he's just not So, okay, cool. So that was all of the fun fights, but bringing us to, the absolute chaos-making fight of the evening. The co-main event, which, anybody who followed the fight knows was Lopez Ige. This was a co-main event that came about because the original co-main event was John Mahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr. Remembering that changed into the Anthony Smith Dolidze fight, Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega were going to fight as a co-main event. So then all of this crazy stuff starts happening on Twitter. I'm plugged into Twitter as I'm watching the fight. I called you and I'm saying, dude, something is happening right now at the arena with this Lopez Ortega fight, and people don't know what it is, but it sounds like Ortega can't fight. And so it sounds like Ortega just got deathly ill during his weight cut.
Yeah. Which, short notice weight cuts are regular weight cuts are nasty enough,
These guys had less than 3 weeks to notice for this fight, right?
Right. To get down to the normal weight.
Yeah, exactly. And so 103 Fever, Nevada Athletic Commission, I don't know what exactly happened, but it sounded like the Athletic Commission was like, there's no way that we're going to let this guy fight. So that was that all of this happened at 9 o'clock at night while the prelims were going on.
Yep.
And so 9 o'clock Eastern time, to be clear. And so Ariel Helwani posts that the UFC is looking to book Dan Ige at catchweight for 165 fight. I think that Lopez weighed in 161. Mm-hmm. And they had to reweigh. So I think that this is the unprecedented part of this for the UFC, because fights have changed and gotten shuffled around, but I don't think that anybody has ever changed Ige came in not as a backup. He was literally getting a massage at his house when they got him.
To my knowledge, there's never been anybody who wasn't on the card or there intentionally as a backup or whatever, who just, the event was in Vegas and he lives in Vegas or trains in Vegas with Extreme Couture, and they were like, hey, this guy's in town, let's see if he'll do it.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and then you start seeing... So Ige was going to fight in July, so they had all of his records, and he was certified by the commission and everything. And then they post this text message that Ige and Hunter... I forget what Hunter's last name is, but he's the dude at the UFC who, books all the fights and player personnel director or whatever. Do you know his name?
Yeah. I want to say... Is it Hunter McIntyre?
That sounds right. Yeah, we'll have to watch the Roku Inside the UFC series or whatever that is so that we can start.
Oh, no. Hunter McIntyre is a name I saw the other day when I was reading something about fitness racing.
So not that.
The Spartan racing stuff.
As you can tell, we're...
Campbell, right?
Campbell, there we go. Hunter Campbell, yeah.
Okay,
and so
came to me.
There we go. So text message between Dan Ige and Hunter Campbell. He says, "Hey Hunter, I've been in camp for 3 months. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I can fight this guy tonight, and I can beat him. This is what legends are made of. I'm in. I'm ready. I'm in great shape. Please do not take this opportunity away from me." So, like, goes from all of us thinking that Dan Ige is doing the UFC a favor to Dan Ige being like, "Do not take this opportunity away from me. If you don't let me fight, you're screwing me over." Just amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Just so freaking cool.
What a cool guy. That's like what, I feel like the old school guys, like from way back in the day, that's that same kind of spirit that you don't see as much anymore. Not even because whatever guys are less tough or whatever, but they're just more calculating about their careers. Each division is deep and they're trying to give themselves the best chance to get to a title.
Tons of money in the sport now. You got, just tons of stuff going on that's a little bit different than it used to be. And I feel like it actually reminded me of, what was it that Chael said ahead of his, kind of fun bout against Silva, boxing bout against Silva? He was like, when a man asks you to fight him, you absolutely have to do it. It just kind of reminded me of that it's like Dan Ige is just of a different ilk. And it was funny because Megan O'Leary was like, he joked that we need stories to tell our sons. And I think that every guy in the room with me when we were watching was like, this guy is not joking when he says that. He is thinking this is the stuff, these are the stories I get to tell my kids and grandkids about my career. So freaking cool. Love everything about it.
That's awesome.
And he went in and almost won the fight.
He did, yeah. It was close. I agreed with the judges. I think they had it 29-28, right?
Oh, I definitely think that it was clear in a decision who won, but I think that he had Lopez.
I think he won the third round.
Oh, absolutely.
On all three judges' cards. And I think Chael points this out often, that in the real world, if you're in a fight at school, even if you're getting, beat up at the start, if you end the fight on top, beating the snot out of the other guy, it doesn't matter. That's
the guy who wins.
Yeah, that's considered the winner. So
yeah, if you asked somebody in the street who won that fight, it'd be the guy who was beating, pounding the other guy at the end. And so I think two things: Lopez, incredible fight IQ to go shoot twice at the end to save himself either from a knockout or a 10-8 round, because Ige was absolutely dominating him that round. If he'd survived that, I think that he could have done enough damage even in the last minute and a half to make some people consider 10-8. Probably wouldn't have happened, but yeah, I think he could have been knocked out, or it could have been a draw. A draw would have been very appropriate. I was kind of rooting for that, and it became clear that it wasn't going to happen. But man, that would have been just wild if it was 28-28.
But credit to Diego Lopez as well. Like, so many different opponents, so many different weight classes he cut to. And
yeah, Diego Lopez actually put a tweet out about it. He'll say he summarized the madness. He accepted the fight with 2 weeks' notice, change of category from 145 to 155, then 165. 3 hours before the event, they changed the opponent, someone who had 3 months of camp without cutting weight. The UFC gave both of them the option not to accept. He could have gotten paid without fighting. He could have said no to the fight. He was at 161, but he says, like I said, anyone, anytime, anywhere, whatever weight. That's awesome.
Gangster.
Best hair, worst tattoo, awesome attitude. So
that sums it up.
Biggest takeaways for me of this fight. Dan Ige's an absolute dog. He earned himself a ton of fans during that fight, and I think that he could, if he has any more performances even remotely as cool or dramatic as that, he could definitely quickly become a household UFC name. The other big takeaway. Both of them called out Dana at the end of the fight and was like, hey, we want to fight at the Sphere. And I think he's going to let him fight at the Sphere. I think he said that in the post-fight presser.
Yeah, you got to reward guys that are like company men like that, right? Like if they're willing to do stuff for the UFC's going to, Dana's a good guy. He's going to throw him a bone.
Yeah, love it. Okay, main event, Perriero, Prohaska 2, a face-off for the ages. Both metaphorically and literally. Just amazing walkouts, and then you've got Prochazka doing his like samurai stuff in the middle of the octagon as Pereira's walking out. And I don't think we mentioned the last podcast enough about like how Yuri became Yuri, but he, like, you know the story better than I do about how he became. He's like an actual samurai, or thinks he is anyway.
Yeah, I mean his life is just very heavily influenced by the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. He's like this famous, samurai from the 1600s or 1500s or whatever, who is credited with like winning 146 duels or whatever, like killing 146 men in single combat, like over and over and over. And he wrote this book about like the warrior code, basically, and that's what Yuri kind of tries to live his life by.
And so he's doing all this, like, it's funny because if I didn't know any better, I would think it was weeby, but it's not. It's like actually him being a samurai in a weird way. In the middle of the octagon, as Pereira walks out. And then they, like, face off, and neither of them, this is going to sound like an exaggeration or hyperbole. It's not. Neither of them blinked for, like, 5 minutes. They didn't blink.
It was pretty crazy to see. And, I mean, who knows if the camera was off of them and they snuck a quick blink in or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
At the appropriate times, but it was pretty wild.
I mean, look. I wear contacts. I don't know if those guys wear contacts. You would assume they're high enough level they would have gotten the surgery.
You're also definitely not allowed to fight wearing contacts.
Oh, is that true? I don't know that.
I mean, wouldn't that thing get blasted back behind your eyeball and come out, and then I
feel like guys have
surely
lost
that's not allowed.
Haven't guys lost contacts in the
I'm googling this.
Yeah, Google it. Because I feel like guys have lost contacts. I mean, I wouldn't pick it up and put it back in. I'm maybe making that up, but anyway, all that's to say, with these things in, I can barely keep my eyes open for 30 seconds, let alone 5 minutes. So, do we have an answer?
Wow, I stand corrected. This says most state athletic commissions will allow contacts, but Nevada does not. So,
okay, well, there we go. That's probably smart. Get the surgery.
It just seems that it could come out too easily.
There's a place down the street that will do LASIK surgery. They work out of a U-Haul storage unit, and they'll do one eye, buy one eye, get one free. So if you're in the Northern Kentucky area, let me know.
So a friend of ours, a mutual friend, who will remain nameless, but I'll just say he's, to my knowledge, the only person we both know who hit a pedestrian with his car. When we were growing up, we would like spar boxing in the garage, and there's a video somewhere, but I distinctly remember him hitting him one time with like a punch, and him going like, "Ow, my contacts," and like it kind of like went back, like he lost it for a minute or whatever. You know?
Back in the eye. Well, yeah. He's the kind of guy who would have 2-week contacts in for a year and a half and then be like, dude, they're just really itchy. I can't talk about it. And then he'd have like a bad infection and then talk about how that led to his terrible relationship with contacts and optometrists. And he like just wears glasses now because of it. We have to send this to him. So couldn't keep my eyes open that long. I think it's amazing. Pereira apparently broke his toe. Like they said, he was fidgeting with his toe, after the fight for 5 minutes, and then his kids are helping him limp. But
Chael and John Jones. If Yuri could have made it out of the second round after that kick, he might have won by attrition, basically. DQ.
I just think that that's so interesting to think about, because where I was going with it was that Conor broke his pinky toe, and that's what caused the McGregor-Chandler fight to be off, and Pereira saved the fight and broke his toe in the process of it. You can't write this stuff,
Yeah, that's pretty... It's
amazing.
It's somehow poetic.
Have you seen Yuri's reaction to his loss?
I did, yeah. And I think he needs to evolve to the next level by learning some defense.
So Yuri said that the only thing on his mind was that he needs to evolve to the next level or do not fight again.
Yeah, and I think that evolution looks like learning some defense, right? He's fast, he darts in and out, he keeps his hands at his waist, like, all that is great, but I'm trying to think of a fight where he didn't, like, constantly put himself in extreme danger, and you just can't do that with Alex.
He has such a chin on him.
Yeah.
So,
although that can go away after too many concussions, so.
Well, yeah, and I mean, or, a gigantic Easter Island head with a fist, so.
It's a good source of concussions.
Yeah. Jamal Hill, of course, had something to say about this fight. Posted on X, during the fight or soon thereafter, and said, "I'll sleep the next guy, and then we go again. Great win, but we're not done." And that was actually read during Pereira's post-fight press conference. And the translator, I think, is Alex's translator. And he's reading this tweet to Alex, and he's laughing as he's reading this tweet. And Alex's response was simply, "Okay." So it's just like such a perfect exchange there between those two.
Just classic Alex.
Yeah. So some questions for you. Was Herb Dean late?
I mean, I don't think so. You could definitely make the case that he was a little late, but obviously he had in his mind that the last fight was criticized for being too early, and he let it go a little further. But it's definitely not in the top, whatever, pick a number, top 50 most egregiously late stoppages I've ever seen, or whatever.
No, and I think Herb, catches some flack for this, but I think that the reason he does is because his stoppages are more appropriate than some of the egregiously early ones that we see. And I also think that Herb has a good feel for the gravity of the fight. For example, I don't think that he's necessarily waiting as long in a fight in the early prelims as he is the main event of the evening. So,
yep.
I like the stoppage. People on Twitter can say what they want to say. I think Dana is, shaking Herb's hand after that one. Okay, next question. Is magic real?
Absolutely. I think it's entirely possible that Alex is being powered by demons at this point. I mean, what he has achieved is black magic, deal with the devil type stuff.
Counterpoint would be Pereira's heartfelt message to Yuri after the fight. He said, "I know he talks a lot about spirituality, just so he knows the same God that blessed us is the one that protects him. I pray for him a lot and for him to be well after this fight," which I just thought was really a very cool thing for Pereira, especially
cool
after
and classy.
Yeah, and it's always nice to see that, and there was a picture of them at the airport. They took a picture of the airport together, so I no bad blood between these guys whatsoever, and I don't think anybody expected there to be any. But okay, next up is the Izzy fight. Was the Israel Adesanya Alex Pereira fight a fluke?
No, it was just the perfect game plan, and Pereira got a little too aggressive.
Yeah.
Similarly, like that's been Yuri's downfall in both the fights, right? Being too aggressive and not calculated enough. And Pereira just got excited, and he had Izzy on the ropes, and Izzy executed it really well.
Yeah,
the first fight, if you remember, in the UFC between Izzy and Pereira, Izzy won like the first, I think 4 rounds, however many rounds it went. He was winning the fight. So I think, credit to Izzy.
Totally. Yeah. There's a video, Izzy's reaction. He was watching live. And the only thing I'm going to say about this video, and we'll put up a picture, a little clip of it, is that he didn't react much, which you wouldn't expect him to. But he's in this room full of tons of people. I can only imagine I don't recognize him, but I can only imagine it was his gym. They were all watching together. And there are 2 couches, and everybody's sitting on like metal folding chairs, except 2 people on one couch, and then Izzy's just laying across an entire couch. It's so easy to hate a guy who's taking a cushioned chair away from so many people. 4 people could have sat on that couch. It was weird. So it's like he thinks he's the king.
He does a lot of weird stuff.
He does some weird stuff. His dog wasn't there. I think that YouTube would have deemed that inappropriate, so they took his dog away. And there will be an Izzy fight someday, and we'll work the courage up to tell everybody what Izzy did to his dog. So, biggest takeaway from the main event of the evening?
I don't know. Either defense is important or wrestling is good.
Yeah.
That'd be one of those two, which is crazy looking at the light heavyweight division right now.
I know.
You know, you've got Ankalaev, and other than him, there's really no one with like this. You know, there are other guys who have some takedowns, know how to wrestle a little bit, but there's nobody that's like, you know, back in the day, Chael Sonnen threatening Anderson Silva, this incredible striker. Like, I know I can put this guy on his back.
Yeah.
This, you know, maybe Ankalaev, but Ankalaev said that he thinks he's a better striker and he won't need to use his wrestling against Alex. So I hope that he takes a page out of Ian Gary's book and says that, but then just wrestles the entire time.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you. I think that I've got two takeaways here. I think the first one is that that boxing is back, kickboxing is back. Not that it really ever left, but you know there definitely was an era where Dana and team were doing some tricks with the matchmaking to make the fights really compelling because you know jiu-jitsu became such a disruption to the sport. And, you know, we've seen this leading up in the past few years at least, that you've got guys who have really strong kickboxing backgrounds or really strong, backups with some of their, focus on jiu-jitsu as a mixed martial art. And it's really cool to see two guys who are like great strikers in main events. I guess we always had it for main events, but it's becoming clear that striking has kind of caught up to some of the defense that jiu-jitsu can give you. So. That's
yeah,
cool.
or at the very least, strikers have gotten good enough at takedown defense.
Yes. Yeah, great. Yeah. And the other thing that we both should have talked about, but I'll just bring it up here as one of my biggest takeaways, I'm sure it's one of yours, is Alex Pereira is really good. And, that sounds tongue-in-cheek, but this dude is, like, really good. He's had 9 MMA fights. He hasn't had double... No.
That's crazy to me.
That's not UFC. He's had 9 MMA fights, period.
Right.
All of them are in the UFC, but...
It's nuts.
I can't help but feel he got brought in to be the guy that beat Israel Adesanya, and, like, that's why the UFC signed him, because, hey, he's this guy who did this thing. He's kind of the cool answer to a trivia question. And now I'm wondering if we're going to see him be the first guy to take a belt in 3 divisions.
That, what I was just saying about light heavyweight not having anybody who can wrestle. If John Jones were still at light heavyweight, he is like the perfect answer to Alex. He's got such long reach, and then he's a great wrestler. Like, Alex is really good, like you said, but I think he's one of the best on the planet at one thing. Yeah, and then kind of average at best for the UFC, which is still really good, obviously. Yeah. But
I wouldn't want to fight him.
Everything else, whereas like John Jones, Tom Aspinall, I think there are a lot more, which is really weird, but I think there are a lot more well-rounded, complete mixed martial artists. Well, maybe not a lot, but there are certainly more in the heavyweight division right now than light heavyweight.
So, let's kind of keep with that theme and talk about what fights we need to see next as a result of 303.
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, you have it right here. Ankalaev, I want to see. Yeah. We got to match Alex up with a wrestler. He's talking about fighting John Jones or whatever. I
mean, it seems like they're on a collision course.
The idea of a 3-division champion is cool, but I don't see any world where that's even competitive.
I agree with you, but then again, I think that you doubt Alex Pereira at your own peril, because the guy seems to have like an incredible fight IQ.
He's proven that to me multiple times now. So
yeah, I mean, we'll just see what happens. But I think like you said, Ankalaev is probably a good little test for him to see if it's even a possibility. And Dana's going to have to put him up against somebody who is able to beat him.
As long as Ankalaev isn't an idiot and actually does use some wrestling. I know, like, he's very prideful about the striking right now, but
yeah. So who does Diego Lopez get to fight next? It's got to be Brian Ortega, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, it just feels right to let them both have a full camp and actually cut weight properly. And
yeah, and if they do that, that'll be at the Sphere. So apparently that's going to be the most amazing sports production in the history of mankind, according to Dana.
I know. He has really talked it up quite a bit.
Yeah, he was like, nobody else will be able to do this. It's too much money. But if you look and hear how much money he's spent so far, it's like $16 million. And I mean, that's a lot of money for me and you. But in the world of, I don't know.
Professional sports, it doesn't seem like that much. Yeah.
It's like $16 million in an arena that cost like $1.5 billion to build. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But,
right.
You know, who does Yuri fight next?
I think you've got it right here too. It's got to be Jamahal Hill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for saying Jamahal. Not
how it just feels like it just feels like a nod to you and to Chael Sonnen, which two of my favorite people. So,
dude, and by the way, just a quick nod at that. So during the post-fight show, Chael is talking about Alex Pereira, and he's calling him Perriero. And he's like, and he's complimenting him and going on. The guy is so committed to the bit; it's incredible.
Well, that's why he's undefeated, undisputed. Like like you said earlier, he would never be MVP and Ian Gary being nice to each other with the kid with cameras on him. He is committed to the bit forever. I mean, to the point of the eyebrows being gone.
Yeah, you got to check out the video of that. But Ian Gary, who's Ian Gary fight?
I mean, there's a lot of, there's 6 guys above him in the welterweight division right now, unless, have they moved him up since beating MVP? I don't know.
I was just going to look at that. I'm sure it takes
any
them a
of the
while to do this.
6 would be interesting fights. Off the top of my head, who we got? Leon Edwards, Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, Colby. Like, I think any of those would be interesting fights with Ian, but Shavkat, like you've got here, that would just make me happy because I want to see Ian Gary lose, and I think Shavkat is the boogeyman of that division right now.
Bilal would be fun to see too. Or
Who?
Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns would be fun to see him fight, but I think he, like you said, I think he's got a better chance beating Gilbert than Shavkat.
Gilbert is very exciting.
I truly wish that either Gary fought at bantamweight or O'Malley fought at welterweight. Obviously, that will never happen, but it'd be so amazing to see those two pick each other apart.
That would be cool.
And I just would be rooting for injuries in that fight, I think. So,
you've got it down here next. Michael Page fights Stephen Thompson. Wouldn't that be awesome? Just like, blood sport, 80s karate movie classic matchup. But Ian Gary, Wonder Boy would also be an interesting fight, just because I think Wonder Boy is a lot like MVP in terms of the striking ability, but he has a lot better takedown defense, apparently, based on what we saw Saturday night. I mean, Stephen Thompson has fought some of the best welterweight wrestlers on the planet, and pretty much always managed to get back to his feet to keep people from taking him down. So that would be an interesting one too.
Got a kind of a bonus here that's not really related directly to the 303, but apparently the Diamond, Dustin Poirier, is saying that he's got one more in him. So who do you think he should fight?
Oh gosh, there have been so many exciting fights that he's been a part of. It's hard to pick just one. He wants the belt to cement his legacy and stuff like that, but I don't really see him getting that rematch unless he does step in kind of to replace someone else. But I mean, he's 1-1 with Justin Gaethje right now. That's always exciting. His fight with Michael Chandler was absolutely incredible. One of those maybe. Those were just
Max. Yeah, he fought Max, didn't he? That would
Holloway?
be a great fight. Holloway.
That would be a great
Holloway,
fight too.
Poirier. Or Charles Oliveira would be fun.
That would be cool.
I don't know if that's the best matchup, but I like those fighters. So,
Lightweight is stacked with interesting people.
So we've got a week off, and then we've got 2 fight nights, and then 304 is coming up. So I think we'll look at that. New bit here in the last few minutes, and don't look at my notes here because I kept them in our podcast notes. But we wanted to debut and we've got to come up with a better name than interesting, maybe like entertaining. But the Fight Club Rejects podcast, pound for pound, most interesting fighters rankings. Interesting, entertaining, dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. These are not just the most entertaining inside the octagon, but just the personalities. You know, who do you want to hang out with to watch the fights? Is kind of how I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and I kind of thought about it like not necessarily that bend, but who is going to generate the most excitement about the fights for the casual fan. So I'll start. Number one on that list that just is, to me, a no-brainer is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, as long as he's been away, it's like 3 years at this point, is still the most popular fighter in the history of the sport. And until somebody can replicate what he's done at any level, I think he's going to stay that way for a while. As long as he's fighting.
He's definitely going to stay the most popular. Like I said, the way I was thinking about it was like, who do I want to hang out with and watch the fights just because they're insanely interesting personalities. Yeah. So I had him up there, but he was not my number one.
Who was your number one?
Well, I'll share my screen here.
Oh boy.
How do I... Let's just go entire screen. All right. Number one is, of course, the man of the hour, who's too sweet to be sour. So on and so forth. Chael P. Sonnen.
Yeah.
The P is for undefeated, undisputed. The man is a living legend, and I think that, Conor stands on the shoulders of the giant that is Chael Sonnen when it comes to trash talk and being an interesting guy. So put some respect on the man's name.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, that's gotta be. I totally get. I should caveat, all of mine are, well, more or less active fighters. As remains to be seen if Conor's ever gonna fight again.
I did more of an all-time list. So
this is great. Oh no, that's perfect then. Okay, so my number two, Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is the face of the MMA right now while Conor's on his sabbatical. He doesn't even speak English, and he's one of the most recognizable faces in the sport. They showed him in the vlog series leading up to the 303 fight that, like, people at Times Square stopping him and taking pictures as a huge swarm of people. So I'd say he's my number two right now. But I can see there being cases made for others.
Chama. I mean,
Chama.
What more needs to be said, right?
Chama in the good way.
Yes. I think there's only a good way, so.
No, he said they could use it bad ways. He's like, if I don't want to go work out, I can be like, Chama.
Okay. So it's just a catch-all.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. For my number two, I have got...
I love the effects here.
I'm just bringing it... Well, that's number one. But number two is Chael P. Sonnen again. You're dang right. I just had to do it. I think he's so interesting. He's leagues ahead. I mean, it's the reason why he's everywhere, right? He's got a show with DC. He's got a successful podcast. He's color commentating. He's everywhere. He's incredible.
He's got the biggest arms.
Yeah. The greatest charms. And he does a lot of harm. The guy is great. But
amazing. Okay.
I won't share my screen the whole time, but since...
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Oh!
Conor McGregor.
Okay. Number three.
Number three.
Okay.
Number three, I had Conor since, we already talked about him, but I put him in number three, which is really number two because Chael took the first and second spot.
True. Fair enough. Yeah, it's like T1, and then he's number three now, yeah. It's how they do it in golf, right? My number three, Israel Adesanya. Love to hate this guy. He went from, I think for both of us, being somebody we love to watch win to just kind of almost instantly... through like small things, just turning into this cringe lord and just extremely hard to watch his walkouts and all of his antics.
He really paved the way for Ian Gary's fall from grace. Like,
yes,
just
Yeah.
Just the exact opposite of a meteoric rise.
I remember Ian Gary in like a red velvet suit without a shirt at the post show of a fight night, I think, when he like this probably a year or two ago, and he's up there and everybody's like, oh, what a nice young man he is. He's got such a future, Gary. And then like all of a sudden through just not even really big events, hate the guy. Izzy's the same way. So that's my number 3. My number 4 is I actually think I saw a little preview of what you had at number 4.
Yeah, you did.
My number 4 is Nate Diaz.
Yep, he's great.
So,
I've got him at number 5 here myself.
Oh, okay.
Just he is as authentic as it gets, right? Like he is just about that life, and whether we'll see more fights from him or not, he's one of the greats in terms of fighting and in terms of entertaining.
So quotable too.
Yeah.
And I can't repeat any of the quotes on this podcast because we're trying to keep it family friendly, but needless to say, so quotable.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Like I said, I had him at number 5. I put what might be a surprising choice up here at number 4, Daniel Cormier.
Okay.
I just love the guy. He's, 2-division champ, doesn't take himself too seriously, and I felt kind of like drafting him was a little bit cheating because I got the bonus of also having his relationship with Habib and with Islam, which is just some of the most fun stuff to watch. Like, Habib talking about too many hamburgers, brother, and like he was interviewing Islam just not that long, or no, somebody else was interviewing Islam, and DC walked in and pulled up his shirt, and Islam's like, how this man double champ,
You've got you've got
watching
the
him wrestle as like a older brother, like messing with his little brothers. He's so fun to watch.
You've got Justin Gaethje going to find him before 300 and like walking in finding DC at the cafeteria eating chicken. He's like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be interviewing me right now, and you're eating." And DC's like, "Oh shoot, sorry." Like, go, yeah, awesome. So my number 5, the famous John Bones Jones. I feel like that guy needs to be up there. He is such an incredible fighter, human piece of trash, in a good way, in a kind of like admirable way in some ways, in other ways not. He probably would tell you that himself, but he's my number 5. He's an amazing fighter.
I have him later in my list. He's an amazing fighter, and he's also, he can generate a lot of interest. He's a really interesting guy.
That's my thing. If you put him on any card, it's going to be instantly one of the most watched cards of the year.
So we already talked about my number 5, Nate Diaz. Number 6, I'm throwing it back with Bas Rutten. Do you, remember Bas Rutten?
No.
So there was an organization called Pancrase in Japan back in the day. And he was like the king of Pancrase, just super fun, interesting guy, Dutch kickboxer. But he's just so entertaining. He's been a color commentator for various organizations before because he's so fun. He's got an incredibly famous like self-defense video on YouTube where he's just like talking about beating a guy up, and he's like, bangity bangity bong bang bong, like, and then don't you ever do this, like slamming the guy's head into like a table inside of the Chili's they filmed this video in, or whatever it is. And
it's amazing.
He's just an entertaining personality, and deserves the nod.
That's like our friend who hit a pedestrian with his car's style of sound effect humor.
Yes. Bongity bang.
My number 6 was Sean O'Malley, the clown himself. Another extremely hateable guy. I think he's gross and filthy on so many levels, but incredible fighter. You put him on any card, and he's going to be, like, again, one of the most watched cards of the year.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I didn't have him on my list, but
yeah, you could see
he generates a lot of interest. Like I said, mine was people that I would maybe want to watch the fights with. And I don't really want to hang out with Sean.
No, you would be worried about catching something that you couldn't get rid of. So, did you already say your number 6?
Yeah, that was Bas Rutten.
Okay, yeah, okay. My number 7, Ian Machado Gary, once again, another guy I love to hate, but I just think that he's rising to the point where, I mean, his stock is going up. He was number 7 before this fight. I would think that he's going to be higher than that. Following, you'd think,
Yeah.
So yeah, I got Ian Gary. Love to hate him.
I have him later in my list as well for the same reasons, not because I like him,
Yeah.
My number 7 actually is Mr. Secret Juice himself, Paulo the Eraser Costa.
Yeah.
If this were a draft of best MMA Twitters, he would be at number 1. But he's got such a sense of humor. He is hilarious and just love the guy. Just absolutely love him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely considered him. He didn't quite make it onto my honorable mentions just because I don't know enough about him, and I think I kind of missed him in the middle of some of his prime antics. But definitely feel like that's a good choice.
Yeah. Number 8.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll go for it. Okay, I got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at number 8, and this is kind of where my heart took over. Because I was like, I don't know, I don't necessarily, he draws a ton of eyeballs. I don't know if he should be above some of the guys that I put him above, but I just like him a lot. He's just an all-time good guy, and it's hard to make a ton of money being a good guy in the UFC, and he has done it.
There's nobody that dislikes him. The tequila commercial he has with him and Kevin Holland, you know, that show, like, he's just so fun. Everybody loves him.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Number 8, I've got a man who is very much not Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and that is Sean Strickland. Just, you want to talk about larger-than-life entertaining characters. I mean, this guy he's basically Trevor from GTA.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's insane in a good way.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
I
totally agree.
Any press conference he's talking at, anytime he's putting anything out there, it's going to be interesting.
I couldn't agree more. I also have him on my list, and he is not in the honorable mentions, but he is not my next one. Now my number 9 most entertaining fighter is the one, the only Derek Lewis. So,
man, how did I miss him?
I know.
What a great pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great choice.
He has to be up there. And for a lot of different reasons, he's there. Very quotable. Again, many of the quotes we're probably not going to mention on this podcast, but just Google Derek Lewis's, highlights.
Dang, yeah, I should have had him in here.
I can understand why you wouldn't, though, because in terms of his ceiling as a fighter, I don't necessarily think he's the kind of guy who can win the belt. But just incredibly entertaining fighter.
My number 9, I've actually got Ronda Rousey. I don't know if you were following MMA very close when she was around, but she was genuinely very exciting and like almost, I mean, one of the reasons why she was so big, is like Conor. Like, Conor would go out there and talk, and then he would just do exactly what he was supposed to do, right? And that was Ronda, like, during her heyday. Like, she was on every, late night talk show and interesting, and people loved her, and everybody wanted to tune in. Everybody loved her, even, especially Derek Lewis.
Yeah. Did she ask about me? Who's your number 10?
Don Fry.
Oh, yeah. That's
throwing it way back. But talk about people I would want to watch fights with.
Back when men were men.
Yeah.
We
when
watched 7 times.
Ships were made of wood and men were made of iron. But yeah, the mustache, the American flag hats, the persona, the voice, like...
The voice, yeah.
Like, the holding... oh, gosh. It's escaping me. Giant Japanese guy that had the blonde hair, where they're just holding each other. Yeah. Like, just a man's man.
That was Pride,
super
wasn't it?
entertaining.
It
was
amazing. My number 10, Sean Strickland. So I think that's an appropriate mirror image of your top 10. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I picked 3 quick honorable mentions, just people from various eras of the past that I think are cool and would want to watch fights with. And that's Clay Guida. I don't know if you remember him. Had the long hair, kind of a crazy man. Very exciting. Yeah. Robbie Lawler, just the same. He's got that dog in him. And then Forrest Griffin, the legend that, tough made the UFC what it is. And, I mean, his books that he's written, he's an insane person and hilarious.
Yeah, I've got a few. My number 1 honorable mention might fall off the list sometime soon, but I feel like Dan Igue's got to be up there. I almost poked him up into the top 10 because, like, the guy takes a fight on... we've just never seen anything like it, and he deserves to have a lot of fans because of that, and I hope that he parlays it into amazing things. I also had Merab on here because Merab is such a freaking clown, and I feel like Danny Ige could do some stuff like Merab and be just as entertaining. I put Volk in my honorable mentions. I don't know why some of his reactions and videos and things don't get more attention, but the guy's like borderline unbeatable on a great day unless you catch him. But Justin Gaethje up there. I had Poirier, Holloway, Oliveira. Yuri has to be up there, and maybe the top 20 rankings. I
almost put him in my top 10. Just again, interesting. Screaming at the arena at 3 a.m., beating himself with poison ivy,
But I just felt like you put him on a card, and it's I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. I had Valentina. Shevchenko.
Awesome.
She's awesome. Kamaru Usman, I feel like, a few years ago probably would have been in the top 10 on my list and just kind of fell off. And I put the Assassin Baby on there because I like his nickname and I think he's kind of a fun, popular fighter. So
he is fun.
So
in my dishonorable mentions,
okay,
2 people that you already mentioned that we love to hate: John Jones and Ian Gary. John Jones, dishonorable mention because in my book he's entertaining for all the wrong reasons. Same with Ian Gary. And then the third one I put in here, just getting ready for the next card, Bilal, forget the name. Who is that again? Muhammad. So boring. Just has never been in an exciting fight in his whole life. And so he's dishonorable mention. Just amazing. Snooze fest anytime Bilal's involved. Don't tune in.
We might need to have another ranking in a subsequent episode about our most hated fighters. But for now, I think we leave it there. I think that's a good list. We'll keep that list. We'll put it up on the website. Make sure you go check it out. FightClubRejects.com or .net or .io. I don't know what it is. I don't think we have one.
I was about to say, what? This is news to me.
Yeah, so just check out our Instagram maybe, and we'll post it up there. But yeah, until next time, I think this is the Fight Club Rejects.
All right. I thought you were frozen, but I see you moving now.
I just wanted to see how long that would last.